Welcome to Hoosier Homeland, an Indiana Department of Homeland Security podcast. This podcast discusses and explores the latest news and insights in emergency management and public safety. Join us as we engage with subject matter experts and bring you the latest on how IDHS is working to provide Hoosiers with a safe, secure, and resilient Indiana. Sit back, relax, and let's dive in. As we head into the colder months, winter weather preparation becomes more crucial than ever for staying safe. Today, we're excited to have Sam Lashley from the National Weather Service join us to dive into what Indiana's winter season might look like this year. We'll be discussing the winter weather outlooks, predictions for snow and temperature trends, and how events from this past storm season are shaping the National Weather Service's forecasting methods. Whether you're preparing for potential snow or just curious about what this winter holds, stay tuned to hear from a seasoned meteorologist about whether Indiana will be a winter wonderland or a winter nightmare. Can you first walk us through NOAA's overall winter weather outlook for this year? And what does it mean for Indiana?
So we're finalizing our outlook right now. Things are actually changing. We were expecting a weak La Nina over the winter. There's still about a 60% chance that's going to happen, but it doesn't look like as strong a signal as it did a few months ago. That has implications for Indiana because El Nino and La Nina that everybody's heard of really impacts the jet stream, where our moisture comes from, what our temperatures do. So being in a very weak to almost neutral type winter gives more variability to what we might see here. So right now we're thinking precipitation above normal. That does not necessarily mean above normal snow. As we've seen many winters, we get a lot of rainfall, and that puts us above normal by itself. Temperatures are the tricky one. We're thinking closer to normal for a winter, but like we've seen in recent winters, we get warm for a period, then we get cold for a period, and we bounce through it. So whether we average out above normal or below normal is tough to say, but we think we're still going to see those extremes going up and down and back and forth through the winter.
How does La Nina influence precipitation and temperature patterns, particularly in the Midwest and Great Lakes region?
So La Nina adjusts the jet stream so that it comes in from the Pacific. So we get a lot of mild Pacific air. And that combines with some weaker storm systems that come out of Canada. And that added moisture could lead to a lot of rain events. Or if those temperatures are just cold enough, then it's more snow events. And literally the jet stream is just right on top of Indiana. It splits us in half. So it's possible the northern half of the state could see above normal snowfall and the southern half of the state sees below normal snowfall. Just depends on where that storm track is. And with these weaker La Nina events, we've seen that storm track really, the jet stream really changes dramatically through the winter. And that makes it tough to predict with too much accuracy. Whereas last winter, El Nino strong, we knew, hey, we were going to be dry and mild and warm, and we were. So that was an easy one. This is more of a difficult forecast.
Indiana has had a pretty active storm season, the 4 tornadoes and straight line winds this year. I'm wondering, how does this past activity influence your winter forecasting?
What's actually influencing us more right now is the drought we're in, because it's really been, outside of Helene remnants, we really haven't had much measurable precipitation since August 31st. So it's very dry out there. Streams and creeks are low. There's not a lot of soil moisture. So drought begets drought is a saying we hear a lot, and we're sort of feeding on that right now. And winter's typically our driest season anyway. So some of the past years we've looked at with a dry end of summer and a dry fall, the winter has started out on the dry side, but then we've become wetter as we've gone through the winter and the last half of the winter into the spring. And that is a trend with La Nina as well. So it kind of gives us a little bit more confidence in that precipitation, especially in the latter half of the winter season that we think will be more wet than the first half.
Do you foresee an extended or unusual storm pattern for the winter?
Yeah, not necessarily, but as I've been telling a lot of the partners, we've seen some of our larger wintertime flooding events during La Nina winters. So because of that jet stream, the storm track, the increased moisture, the ingredients are there. That's not to say we will have it, but it's just that heightened awareness. This is one of those winters to really, make sure your plans for flooding and mitigation and preparedness, everything's ready to go just in case. Because 2008, 2018, those were La Nina winters. Now, granted, they were stronger than what we're expecting this year, but at the same time, it was La Nina, so we need to be ready.
So I've seen that NOAA's forecast suggests drought improvement for the Ohio River Valley, but persistence in the plains. How do these conditions play into Indiana's winter seasons?
We've got those conditions in place, and it's tough to overcome. So, again, with the drought there, the first half of the winter, it's going to be tougher to get that soil moisture back up. It's going to take time. And then once we pick up with the jet stream, more systems, more moisture, then we get wetter towards the latter half. That's also our coldest part of the season. So if the timing's right with the moisture increase, with the cold air, then we could potentially see some more snow events, especially mid to late winter.
So I know precipitation in Indiana's forecast includes all forms like rain and melted snow, not just snow. How do you gauge whether this leads to more snow versus rain in a given winter?
Great question, because really there's no skill in predicting snowfall. We do have skill at predicting winters above normal, below normal precipitation, but when you hear the snow outlook for the winter of 20 inches, 30 inches, that's really truly throwing a dart at the dartboard.
Gotcha.
It's just something that people want. So what we do is we look back at what we call analog years, past years, again, with similar conditions coming out of summer. What did the snowfall look like in those winters? And we try and put a number out there. But again, it's so complicated because only 1 or 2 degrees difference in temperature or 5 or 10 miles in a storm track can mean the difference between 10 inches of snow and 3 inches for any location. So truly, when it comes to being a meteorologist, what's it like to be wrong all the time? Flip a coin, all that comes into play. It's true when it comes to snowfall forecasting. There's just no skill there.
So I read that NOAA's Winter Weather Storm Severity Index is now operational. Could you tell us how this tool helps communities prepare for winter weather?
Yeah, so that just gives you an idea based on the forecast how extreme conditions may be. And while it is operational, sometimes some of the items in there, the impacts may not necessarily line up perfectly with every local community because each community prepares differently, has different mitigation techniques. They're funded differently, quite frankly, more equipment versus less equipment. So that sort of just should be looked at as a general guideline and more of a perspective that, okay, this one has the potential to be a moderate or an extreme event, or it's just going to be a nuisance. So really, I wouldn't look at those specific impacts more as just the general category and reference from one event to the next as to how bad it could be and how you should prepare.
I also know that NOAA has introduced the probabilistic precipitation portal. What information can Hoosiers get from this portal, and how can it help them prepare for winter?
Yeah, so when everybody thinks of probabilistic, they think of 30%, 40%. And statistically, scientifically, that's what it is. But what we're trying to do is put that in a more layman's terms for an event. So we might use terms like a chance or likely, best case, worst case scenarios. So from that aspect, it really gives decision makers like emergency managers, Department of Transportation personnel, superintendents. It gives them a threshold where they can decide when they need to make a decision. So, because everybody's decision threshold is different depending on, your risk tolerance and things like that. So for us, it'll be, again, the 1 in 10 chance, the best case, the 9 in 10, the worst case, and the expected, the middle of the road. Then there's also the probability that snow will exceed 1 inches, 2 inches, 4 inches, 6, 8, and 12 inches. Again, for those decision makers. And that'll give you a range of where to expect the snowfall amounts. We haven't had a whole lot of ice in recent winters, but there's also very similar probabilities for ice and ice accumulation. I don't want to jinx it, but...
Knock on wood.
Yes, knock on that wood, because we have not seen an ice event in quite a while. Southern Indiana, Kentucky, they've had a couple significant ones. So we really haven't tested that out, but those probability thresholds will be there for ice. And it's going to become much more prevalent in our decision support packets that we put out there. We're going to be increasing our confidence thresholds based on that. So we've been told many times that's what people like, is to hear what's our confidence in this happening. That's coming out of this probabilistic idea. And again, so we're not just looking at the pure statistics of probability.
I'm wondering, when you guys provide an equal chance forecast, what does that mean, and how should the public interpret that?
Oh, the good old equal chances. Again, it comes back to statistics. So that comes from the Climate Prediction Center for these long-range outlooks. And what it's saying is there's no clear signal as to what we might see. Like I explained with the La Nina setup, the jet stream, it could shift, it could be anywhere. So there's not that high confidence. So statistically, we look back at past years and we've seen above normal, we've seen below normal, we've seen near normal. So when there's no clear trend, equal chances. And I really wish they would change that wording to maybe no clear trend.
Gotcha.
Something like that. But statistically, it comes out to basically a 33 1/3% chance of above normal, near normal, and below normal.
What should residents know about interpreting winter forecasts and the possibility of extreme cold, especially with the changes in cold weather warnings?
Yeah, again, it was so frustrating in the past. We'd have a wind chill advisory out. The winds dropped to under 5 miles per hour, and we canceled the wind chill advisory because you needed wind to get wind chilled. But the actual air temperature was still as cold, if not colder, through the night, and we did nothing. So what these new extreme cold headlines do is just convey, whether it's air temperature or wind chill, it's going to be cold. One of the two is going to be impacting you. So from the wind chill side of things, nothing's really changed, but we're just simply adding that air temperature component to it now. And we've also lowered the criteria a little bit. The advisory criteria for extreme cold now is -10 to -19, and then -20 and colder will be the extreme cold warning. So whether it's wind chill falling in those ranges or just the pure air temperature, that's what we're looking at to trigger these new advisories.
Are there any particular weeks or months where Indiana residents should be especially cautious or prepared for winter weather this season?
Well, we like to include severe weather in the winter weather season now because we do see a secondary peak in October and November from severe weather. There's actually, as we're taping this, a threat out in the plains here in late October for severe weather. So all months should be looked at for severe weather. And then especially December, January, and February, winter weather, that's what it's going to be at its greatest odds. We see a lot of heavy snow events in March, even some icing events, but the long-lasting effects aren't there. Maybe a day, 2 at the most, and then things are cleared up because the ground temperature is starting to warm, sun angle is greater. So for true winter weather, December, January, February, Mid-January to early to mid-February, climatologically, is when we see the strongest snow events, potential blizzards occur in that time frame, because it is our coldest statistically time of year. And when we get those big systems with a lot of moisture, it does tend to be snow. I think January 24th through the 27th is like just when the greatest number of big winter events have hit Indiana during that time frame. So if you're really focusing down, that would be sort of the window, but we just want residents to be prepared all winter long. We're seeing that severe weather throughout the winter season. We go back to Mayfield, Kentucky. What was that, in 22? December, just crazy. We never really used to have to worry about tornadoes past November in Indiana, and now we do. And it can happen in any month, literally. And what I don't like about winter, the wind shear is off the charts, because the jet stream's the strongest in the winter season. And it's that wind shear that really drives the stronger, long-lived supercell, potentially deadly tornadoes. So when we do have that threat in the winter, it's almost always going to be a higher end type threat, because that wind shear is going to be so strong. So that gives me concern, especially with these warmer winters.
If there's one thing you'd like listeners to take away about preparing for this winter, what would it be?
Yeah, just having those kits ready to go, safety preparedness kits, having a go bag, flashlight, have your medicines ready, extra water on hand, canned goods, even candles, if properly, safely used. It's not the best, but honestly, that's what people are going to use. So just be safe. Same way with space heaters or kerosene heaters. If you are going to use them, just be safe, follow all the precautionary measures, be wary of the carbon monoxide dangers, things like that. People just don't think about that. Having extra blankets, extra food, just ready to go. And if the power goes out from severe weather, that's going to come in useful. If the power goes out from winter weather, you're going to be able to use it. So having it ready, having a bag in your car, having it at your house ready to go is just always a good idea. Take it seriously and prepare early. That's the best thing. Don't wait until the winter storm watch or warning to go out and raid the store for bread. And again, the odds of being stranded these days or confined to your house for more than a day or two is pretty minimal, given how much our technology has increased, the preparedness that's out there by DOTs, emergency management. So you don't need to rush the store at the last minute. Just have enough food on hand for 3 or 4 days, and most people already do. But just think about it well ahead of time, and don't wait till the last minute to make that effort to run out to the store.
And where can listeners go to stay updated on winter forecasts and learn more about winter weather preparedness?
So, of course, we promote weather.gov. If it's weather you love, go to weather.gov.
Okay.
That's where we have all of safety information. As storms are coming in, we'll have information up there. But the local media, local television stations are fantastic. Follow them. They all have their own apps. Just get your information from credible weather services. We have private weather companies here in Central Indiana that do a really good job as well. But just don't fall prey to the social media, the Facebook post of 60 inches of snow. I can tell you right now, there's a model somewhere in the next week that's probably going to show 20 inches of snow. It's just the way models are built. They're not built to forecast really snow accumulation per se. As meteorologists, we interpret the data and create that. When you see these modeled snowfall forecasts, they're just a guidance that are out there. And again, so many are extreme. So, follow the credible weather services. Your local TV stations are going to tell you what the highlights are. And again, they only have 2 minutes to tell you most times. So then go to the websites, go to the weather.gov, check on local conditions. And winter weather forecasts change constantly. We are constantly updating, and the models struggle with that storm track, and that is so critical because that will shift the rain snow line. So don't just look at that 36 or 48 hour forecast and say, okay, we're getting 6 to 10 inches of snow and think that's what's going to happen. It will adjust. And then finally, don't focus on the big number for the snowfall. That 6 to 10, it could as easily be 6 as 10 inches. It's that range. And again, that's where we go back to probabilistic. Look at those values to see where the higher odds are to get an idea in that 6 to 10. Where's the best window statistically for where that snow is going to fall? It might be 8 right in the middle, but it could be on the lower end 6 as well.
Gotcha. Well, I want to thank you, Sam, for joining us today.
You're welcome. Happy to be here.
Well, that wraps up our episode on this year's winter weather outlook. A big thank you to Sam Lashley for sharing these valuable insights on Indiana's upcoming winter weather. Staying prepared is key, and knowing what to expect helps us all stay safe. Remember, preparing for winter means having an emergency kit in your car, dressing in layers, and keeping your home ready for possible power outages. For more tips on winter weather safety and year-round preparedness, check out getprepared.in.gov. It's a great resource to help you plan for any season of life, from winter storms to severe weather. This podcast has been a production of the Indiana Department of Homeland Security. If you enjoyed this episode, our complete catalog can be found on Spotify, YouTube, and Pandora. To listen to previous episodes, go to on.in.gov/Hoosier Homeland. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Indiana DHS. We will see you in the next episode. Until then, stay informed, stay prepared, and take control of your safety.